Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The SMGs in Black Ops 6 Zombies are both better and worse than you may have thought. The testing is complete and I have found some inconsistencies along the way. Please feel free to use the chapters below if there is a certain weapon that you're interested in, or just jump to the end for the final comparisons. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you are smashing that like button. It really does help out with the algorithm. Comment below what your favorite SMG is, or just leave your favorite emoji for the sake of engagement. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, as usual, we're not going to go through these in any particular order whatsoever, so we're going to go ahead and kick off this episode with the C9. This is your base starting SMG in the game, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the numbers here. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the rate of fire. Now, again, these are all hand-tested rates of fire for all of the SMGs, and one thing that I can say is there was absolutely no consistency whatsoever between the rate of fires that I was finding in-game versus anything that was in the menu, and you're going to see some really strange things later on as we talk about some of these other weapons. But for the C9, you're going to get a pack-a-punched rate of fire of 937 rounds per minute. You're going to do a max critical damage of 4,657, which is going to give you a maximum DPS of 72,726, which is a very solid number here for Black Ops 6 Zombies. You got pretty okay special and elite damages there, as you can see on screen, and it does pretty darn well against Patient 13, coming in at 30,296 and 22,582 against the Guardian. Now, I did add some other values in here for the SMGs here. I did add the range values in. I added them in with the CHF barrel and the long barrel, and I'll put these on the graphics here for you so you can see them and reference them anytime that you need. And this is because I think sometimes in some instances it is important to be running the longer barrel with the SMGs, as they don't have a ton of range. At least some of them have really bad range, some are relatively okay. For zombies, you don't need a ton of range, but the C9, you're going to get 13.7 meters if you're running the CHF barrel and 17.8 meters if you are running the long barrel. Now, all in all, with the C9 here, it is a very solid weapon all the way around. It's not the best in class in absolutely anything, but it's also not the worst in class in anything, and it's got a pretty good amount of ammunition. You get 640 total rounds once you have this thing pack-a-punch, so it is always going to be a solid option for you in game. Now, moving on to something that is not going to be such a solid option in game is one of the newest DLCs here, the PPSH. Now, the PPSH is one of the first weapons that we're going to talk about some of these rate of fire inconsistencies. So you can notice that the base rate of fire, this is before you have the weapon pack-a-punch, you're coming in at 1,098 rounds. Once you pack-a-punch it, it drops to 1,014 rounds. Now, I tested this multiple times and I was getting consistent results across the board. Now, the 1,014 is much more in line with the menu stats. Now, of course, this is with rapid fire. All of these rates of fire are all with rapid fire because I wanted to be able to get the maximum amount of bullets, the maximum amount of DPS, which is actually going to talk about a little bit more here when it comes to these DPS numbers. But damage wise, you're going to do 4,286 is your maximum damage. Now, when I talk about maximum damage and maximum DPS, this is once you have Deadshot and you're using the Deadhead augment, which gets you the additional critical shot values. So that is what I'm talking about when you're using max. If you don't have Deadshot, then you're going to be looking at the base critical damage of 3,711 and the base DPS of 62,716. Those are without the Deadshot and the Deadhead. So just to kind of clarify that when I say your maximum DPS. Now, you can see your Manglers and your specials and elites here, the numbers are just not fantastic. I mean, they're in the hundreds of thousands, but if you've watched any of these other videos, you know that that is just not great. Now, you can also see the PPSH is struggling against Patient 13 and the Guardian. 14,821 to Patient 13, 18,539 to the Guardian. And range-wise, you're looking at 12.2 meters while using the CHF barrel and 15.9 meters while using the long barrel. Now, the PPSH is just one of those weapons that you're going to want to avoid at all costs. It is just not a viable weapon in zombies. It has a massive ammunition problem. This PPSH only has a total of 600 243 rounds, but it fires so quickly. The magazines are relatively small. You are going to be reloading constantly. Your damage is low, and you're just going to find yourself out of ammo all of the time. So I would steer far away from the PPSH. Now, one weapon that you do not have to steer far away from is the Tanto 22. So this weapon is going to come in with a base rate of fire of 544. It's going to increase to 861 once you have this pack-a-punch, which is going to make this a very, very viable weapon here. Your maximum critical damage is 7,317, giving you a maximum DPS of 104,998, and that is absolutely best in class for SMGs, and it is no slouch against the specials and elites either. As you can see, all of those numbers at 177, 297, and the abomination goes all the way up to 194,273. The patient 13 numbers blow it out of the water at 39,434, 27,208 against the Guardian. Now, where it struggles a little bit is the range values. CHF barrel is going to be 8 meters. Your long barrel is going to be 10.4 meters. Now, you could run the long barrel with this, get that little bit of extra range if you wanted to, but those DPS numbers would go down if you're not using that CHF barrel. Your patient 13 and Guardian numbers will stay the same, as the CHF barrel does not affect those boss fights, but that's just kind of something that you might want to play with yourself. Generally, 8 meters is plenty in zombies. You're usually shooting everything that is pretty much right in front of you, so 8 meters is generally pretty good. The Tanto 22, we all kind of knew was a pretty decent weapon, but I really didn't know that it was quite as good as it is, and just wait till you see how it stacks up against some of these other weapons once we do our final comparison at the end. Now, sliding back toward the other end of the scale, back toward where the PPSH was, is the Saug SMG. Now, everybody really kind of loved the Saug, thinking this is such an amazing weapon in game, and then you could also run this in akimbo as well. But another, again, with the rate of fire, we had 1,080 as a base, 982 when pack-a-punch. Again, that 982 matches much more closely in game than the 1,080 does before you pack-a-punch it. I really can't explain why some of these weapons are doing this, but we are going to get a maximum damage of 4,435 with a maximum DPS of 72,589. You are pretty on the low side against your specials and elites, but pretty good against patient 13, 26,465, and 17,136 against the Guardian. Your range for the general Saug is 11.3 meters. Your long barrel would be 14.7 meters. Now, if you do run the akimbo Saugs, those ranges will be reduced as well, and theoretically you could double the DPS, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the final comparisons later on. The Saug in and of itself, just the single variant, is an okay weapon. It's solid across the board numbers wise, but ammo becomes very much an issue with this gun. Like some of the other weapons in the game, you do have a total of 630 rounds with the Saug, which seems like it's okay, but there's just something about this weapon that just makes it feel like the ammo just absolutely disappears, and that gets even worse when you're using the akimbo version, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And continuing on with the unimpressive weapons, we got the Jackal PDW. This is going to give you a rate of fire of 855 rounds once you have this thing pack-a-punch, a maximum damage of 4,434 with a max DPS of 63,185, and some extraordinarily underwhelming special and elite numbers. The Manglers, Doppelgast, and Amalgams all at 106,000, and your Abomination at 118,000. Respectable numbers against Patient 13 at 26,662, and the Guardian at 19,195. But you do have some awesome range when it comes to the PPW, or the Jackal PDW. The CHF barrel is at 15.4 meters and the long barrel at 18.5. Now, the Jackal does not have very much to offer you here. It's only got 640 total rounds. It doesn't really fire all that quickly. It has relatively underwhelming numbers all across the board, so I would just steer away from the Jackal. There really is no reason to use this over some of the other SMGs. Next up on the list here is the Kompakt 92. This one, again, rate of fire is pretty off for this weapon. So I got 1,200 for a base and 1173 once you pack a punch. And now that 1173 matches up relatively okay with the in-game number, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. So definitely the fastest firing weapon in the entire SMG class. You're going to get a maximum damage of 4,027 with a maximum DPS of 78,737. Your special and elites are going to come in at 132,000, with your Abomination coming in at 145,000. Really good numbers against Patient 13, 31,612, and okay against the Guardian Guardian at 19,491. Range-wise, you're actually doing really good with the Kompakt 92. With the CHF barrel, you're going to get 11.6 meters, which is more than enough for playing zombies. And the long barrel is going to come in at 13.9 meters. Now, where you might want to go for that long barrel is if you are going into a Patient 13 or a Guardian fight, then that is when the long barrel is going to become a lot more interesting to you as an option, because you're going to be able to get the maximum damage from a little bit further away from those bosses. Now, the Kompakt 92 is going to give you a total of 660 rounds, so that's going to make ammo a little bit of an issue when you're firing it well over 1,000 rounds per minute, but it is a very fun weapon to use. It is good against bosses. It's got a good DPS. It's a very solid weapon to hop into some zombies and have a little bit of fun with. And continuing on the trend of decent SMGs here, we have the KSV. You're going to get a pack-a-punch fire rate of 1,009 rounds per minute with a maximum damage of 4,879, which is going to lead you to a maximum DPS of 82,044. And you got okay respectable numbers. Your Manglers, Doppelgas, and Amalgams all at 138,000. Your Abomination coming in at 152,000. And you got pretty consistent respectable numbers against Patient 13 and the Guardian, 20,382 and 21,811 respectively. And you also have some really good range with this KSV. The CHF barrel coming in at 11.4 meters, which again, like I said, is plenty for zombies. And if you want to run that long barrel, that's going to go all the way up to 16 meters for you. The KSV could use a little bit more ammo. You only get a total of 580 rounds once it's pack-a-punch, but otherwise this weapon is very solid. It's not the best special in Elite Killer, which is a little bit of its downfall, but it's got a very, very good DPS at over 82,000. So the KSV is definitely an amazing weapon to take in. You can fight bosses with this and you can have a whole lot of fun with it. And then that brings us to the original meta for Black Ops 6 Zombies, the PP919. This thing comes in with a very slow rate of fire, 697. It's the same both based and pack-a-punch. You're going to get a max damage of 4,039, which is going to lead you to a maximum DPS of 46,799. Yeah, do you remember when everybody was using the PP919 when this game first came out? Yeah, that's because it has a whole lot of ammo, which is really nice. You get 340 rounds in a magazine with 852 total, so that is awesome. But you can see all of the special and elite numbers are all under 80,000, which is absolutely abysmal. It does do okay against Patient 13 at 25,789, but it's absolute trash against the Guardian, 14,486. Good range with it. CHF barrel 16.6 meters. Long barrel gets you to 22.4. If you're still using the PP919 here in Black Ops 6 Zombies, stop right now. Just stop. It's not worth it. Stop. Just put it away. Delete it from your game files. Never, ever, ever run the PP919. Okay, so that is going to bring us to our final comparison. So I have narrowed down the spreadsheet. And again, this spreadsheet is going to be down in the description for you. You can reference this anytime. And we're going to open it up and compare it against all of the other weapons that I've tested so far here as well, just a little bit in the end. But I have gone ahead and sorted these by the maximum DPS right now. You can see the Tanto 22 is well on top, 104,998. And if you take a look, the in-game average, the average for all the weapons that I've tested so far, which is a bulk of the weapons for the game, is 65,784. So you can just see just how good that Tanto 22 is. But the KSV is up there at 82,000. You got the Kompakt up there at 78,000. These are all numbers that are rivaling the ARs, LMGs. These are really good, solid numbers. These are so much better than I thought that they were going to be. There has been so much talk in this game about how trash the SMGs are, and the SMGs need some love, and the SMGs are bad. They are not bad. I'm here to tell you right now, they are not bad. This is a very good and very viable weapon class. You don't really need the massively long range when you're playing zombies that you get with some of these other weapons. You just need that short range. And if you want a little bit more range, you can sacrifice a little bit of these DPS numbers and run the long barrel over the CHF barrel. It's not going to make a massive difference in game. Yes, it's going to make a difference. It's going to bring those numbers down a little bit, but it's not going to be the most massive difference in the entire world for you. And then let's take a quick look at how these stack up against Patient 13. You got the Tanto 22 coming in at 39,434, the Kompakt at 31,000, the C9 at 30,000. Those are excellent against Patient 13. As you can see, the average in the entire game right now is 24,286. So you can get some really good numbers. You also got the Jackal and the Saug and the PP919. Those are all above average as well. And then when it comes to the Guardian fight, again, we are going to see that the Tanto 22 is on top of the SMG class at 27,208. The Tanto 22 with the binary trigger is also up there as well, but the average there for the Guardian is 20,303. And as always, you can check out all of the other stats and everything that we do have up here for these weapons. Now, a couple other things that I want to talk about super quick before we end this video is the Tanto 22 with the binary trigger and also the Saug akimbos. So the Tanto 22 with the binary trigger, I've talked about this in a video before. It really just makes the Tanto all around a worse weapon, so I would steer far away from it. If you want to check out the values, they're all there for you. I'm not going to run you through all those. I'm just going to tell you right now, it makes the Tanto a considerably worse of a weapon all across the board. So steer away from that binary trigger on the Tanto 22. Now, when it comes to the Saug akimbo, this is really interesting. Now, I did not change the values on the spreadsheet. So basically, you get the Saugs with the same rate of fire, the same amount of ammo, with the same exact damage. So theoretically, you could double all of this and get a really ridiculous number of 150,000 DPS, roughly. Somewhere right around in that area. 145, 146,000 if you were to double this. But that is considering that you would be hitting 100% headshots. And that just simply isn't going to happen with the Saug akimbos. They are incredibly inaccurate. You need to be barrel stuffing with these things. There are major ammo problems with it. You're going to be out of ammo constantly with the Saugs. You're just simply almost unsurvivable beyond round 40 or so with the Saugs, just simply because of the ammo. You're not going to kill them fast enough. You're not going to get enough money back to keep buying ammo once you're triple packed. Overall, I would steer away from the Saug akimbos. They're just not all that attractive. Whenever the single Saug is as decent as it is with the 72,589, then I would probably just stick with that. The Saug akimbos is going to drop your range down to, I believe, 8 meters. So yeah, it's tough. And the hip fire spread is very wide, and you're just basically hip firing two weapons. So if you're not barrel stuffing and putting it right up there, you're missing a vast majority of your shots. And while maybe you might see a slight increase in your overall DPS with the Saug akimbos, if you're accurate in your barrel stuffing, I just don't think that it's anything significant. It's definitely not significant enough that I'm going to change the values in the spreadsheet to reflect the fact that you have two weapons, because you're going to miss a vast majority of your shots to begin with. And then just real quick, I went ahead and I opened up all of the other weapons here. So this is now ready. You can go ahead and look anytime that you want down here, but take a look at this. The Tanto 22, so far of all the weapons that I've tested, which is a lot of weapons here so far in game. That's all of the ARs, all of the LMGs, and a couple other weapons sprinkled in, some of the shotguns and everything. The Tanto 22, 104,998 is the top of the game right now in DPS for this game. Absolutely freaking amazing. That it really does get me excited to see an SMG coming in at the top of the list. And even if we take a look, let's say the Abomination here, yeah, it's still there. It is still top of the list. How about the Amalgam? Are we still top of the list of the Amalgam? No, we just barely lose out to the AS-FAU. And the AS-FAU is by far one of my favorite weapons to use if I'm fighting Amalgams in game. But now, knowing what the Tanto 22 can do all around, you all need to put the Tanto 22 in your loadout right now. Get in there and use it. That gun is absolutely amazing. Now, I do got to give a special shout out to OG and Bank, who have been helping me tirelessly in the background to gather all of this data to make these videos, because this is a lot for one man to do. It's a lot for three men to do. So thank you both so very much for your help. I do appreciate you. You are awesome members of the community, and I couldn't thank you enough. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you're smashing that like button. Help me out in the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed subscribe to the channel, please consider doing so you don't miss another episode. If you want to see how all the LMGs stack up here in Black Ops 6 Zombies, go ahead and check out this video here. My name is Cool Whip, and I'm out.